Unit 4, the thesis title and writing chapter 1. Unit 4, the thesis title and writing chapter 1. Next slide. Introduction. In thesis writing, it is very important to know the proper way of writing a title. In bias of this, according to Katsumoto, cited in the Belen 2015, concept mapping is a general method with which you clarify and describe people's ideas about some topic in a graphical form. By mapping that concept in pictorial form, you can get a better understanding of the relationship among them. Concept mapping encourages the participants rather than on the planner or evaluator. So if you're going to recognize a study, you will first see it on the research title. So writing on the research title, here are the basic questions asked about this. Does the title describe what the study is all about? Does the title contain high specificity level? Is the title academically praised and not overviews? Is the title within the 12 substantive word requirement of the American Psychological Association or APA? So now for the introduction, it is the description of the problem that will be addressed. In the section of the research, the researcher might discuss the nature of the research, the purpose and significance of the problem, and the research question to be addressed. So the questions that needed to be asked in writing an introduction are: what is the problem? Why is it a problem? How it should be solved? Why it should be solved? And what is the purpose of the study? Next slide. The learning outcomes of this unit would be the after successful completion of this module, you should be able to learn the right chapter 1, following all the rules and requirements of the chapter. Next slide.
So for the rules in writing the research title, it is important to make the research title catch the attention of the reader so that para ma-pick yung attention ng mga readers ng research paper nyo. Kasi yung research title, ayun yung pinakaunang nababasa ng reader sa research paper nyo. So kailangan mas ma-draw niya yung attention ng mga audience. So one of the critical parts in thesis writing is the proper way of writing a title. So there are some rules applied in writing the title. So these are the following guidelines. So for the first bullet, the title should be clear and distinctively stated. So kagaya ng sinabi ko, ito yung unang nababasa at napapansin ng mga readers sa research paper. So kailangan andun na lahat ng purpose, andun na lahat ng pinaka-importanting part ng research paper nyo. So for the second button, the subject matter of the study, the place of the study, the population involved, the period when the data were gathered should be included. So sa research title nyo, dapat yun nga, andun na lahat ng pinaka-importanting details about your research paper. So pagkabasa pa lang ng audience nyo ng research title nyo, malalaman nyo na agad kung about ba saan yung research paper nyo. So for the third point, the variables being examined should always be written as a part of the title. Choose terms that will summarize the variables if there were many variables being studied. So dapat andun na yung dependent and independent variable ng research paper nyo. Dapat kasama na siya sa research title nyo. So next slide please. Next slide po. Next slide. So for the next one, rules in writing the research title. The title should be short. It should not exceed 20 words. So based on the research ko, dapat 10 to 15 words lang yung content ng research title. So hindi siya masyadong bulky kung titignan siya sa research paper. So for the next point, the title should not contain acronyms. So mapapansin naman natin sa ibang research title, wala kang makikitang mga acronyms dun. So dapat iwasan yung paglalagay ng acronyms. So for the next one, some forms of title phrasing such as study of, an analysis, a preliminary study of are to be avoided. So parang kapag sa research kasi understood na gumagawa ka ng study or analysis, so dapat hindi mo na i-include yun sa title mo. So for the next, a title should not contain formulas, symbols, or subscripts or other non-alphabetic symbols. Instead, word substitute should be used. So i-avoid natin yung paggamit ng alphanumeric characters and alphabetic symbols lang dapat yung ma-include sa research title. So for the last point, in case the title contains more than one line, it should be written like an inverted pyramid, all words in capital letters. So yung research title daw natin dapat nakasulat siya in inverted pyramids para organize siya tignan, and isa rin to sa mga katangian ng isang good research paper. So next reporter.
So let's proceed sa parts of chapter 1. Chapter 1 of a thesis should contain a discussion of each of the following topics. Let me just enumerate. Una, introduction. Second, yung theoretical framework. Pangatlo, yung there are 4 relevant ideas na kailangan malagay sa introduction. Una, yung topic or subject matter. It defines and elaborates using methods of paragraph development like and giving examples. Sa topic, one, yung importance ng topic. It cites the role that the topic plays in your life and the benefits you derive from it. So, sa importance, dito naman nakalagay yung kahalagahan ng topic and sino yung magbe-benefit doon and yung impact ng topic nyo. Tapos, for choosing the topic, emphasize what motivated you to choose the topic. Tapos, dito dapat nakasulat yung rason kung bakit napili nyo yung topic na yon, bakit gustong-gusto nyo yung topic na yon, ano yung pinaguhugutan nyo para sa topic na yon. And last, yung purpose of the study. It discusses the objective of the study. So, bali dito naman nakalagay yung main goal ng study nyo. And next reporter. Theoretical na po.
Okay. A theoretical framework. This is the foundation of the research study. These are highly related theories and principles that were established and proven by authorities refers to the set of interrelated construct, definitions, and prepositions that presents a systematic value of phenomena. It is also an organized body that explains what has been done and what has been said on the topic or problem being investigated. So, in other words, theoretical framework is a study of other researchers in order for you to have some more evidence in your research. So, basically, theoretical frameworks are researches that can help help to prove your own research. That's all. Next, please.
Conceptual framework, a tentative explanation or theoretical explanation of the phenomenon or problem and serves as the basis for the formulation research hypothesis. It also describes the relationship between specific variables identified in the study. It also outlines the input, process, and output of the whole investigation. The conceptual framework consists of the investigator's own position on a problem after his exposure to various theories that have bearing on the problem, and it also becomes the central theme, the focus, the main thrust of the study, and it serves as a guide in conducting investigation. Generally, nade-develop din po siya based on a literature review of existing studies and theories about the topic. Paradigm. A paradigm is a diagrammatic representation of a conceptual framework. It depicts in a more vivid way what the conceptual framework wants to convey. Next slide po, please. Statement of the problem or objectives. The statement of the problem briefly addresses the question, what is the problem that the research will address? There should be a general statement of the whole problem, followed by the specific questions or sub-problems into which the general problem is broken up. And writing a statement of the problem should help us clearly identify the purpose of the research project that we will propose, and often the statement of the problem will also serve as the basis for the introductory section of the final proposal. It also not need to be long and elaborate. One page is more than enough for a good statement of problem. Next reporter po.
Next slide po. Hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative answer to a research question. It can be. Hypothesis is an idea or explanation for something that is based on known facts but has not yet been proved. Inductive hypothesis, derived from the observation before the research is conducted. The inductive hypothesis is based only on observation before the research begins. Deductive hypothesis, derived from the theory. Deductive hypothesis is based only on what has been studied or on existing theories. Kumbaga, nagbe-base na siya sa napag-aralan ng mga theory at studies. Next reporter.
So let's move on to kinds of hypothesis. Meron tayong dalawa, which is first, research hypothesis. It is usually developed from experience, literature, or theory, or a combination, putting all at once, di ba? So this is the expected relationship between variables, meaning in terms of hypothesis, ito yung parang ina-expect na outcome. This is what you think. Na, like for example, would fertilizer X benefit a plant once applied? So yun yung parang research hypothesis mo na may benefit, may relationship. Now let's move on to the second hypothesis, which is null hypothesis. This is the one that states that there is no relationship between variables. So unlike research hypothesis, null hypothesis states na wala. So ang null hypothesis mo, para dun sa may halaman na may fertilizer X would be that there is no significant change, there's no significant relation, no significant evidence to support that this fertilizer has anything to do with benefiting the plant. So basically research means there is a relation, there is evidence. Null means wala, no evidence. Okay, next researcher.
So next, let's talk about assumptions. So basically, assumptions is a belief that forms one of the bases for the research. So from the word itself, it is assumption or only a belief without any evidence nor concrete proof. Next slide, please. Then let's talk about the significance of the study. So the rationale, timeliness, and or relevance of the study, the existing conditions must be explained or discussed. So what is rationale? So rationale is the reason for conducting the study. So you must mention your reason. Next is timeliness. So timeliness must be updated or in current data, not from an old or outdated data. Next is relevance. So what is relevance? Relevance is the importance of how your research will be beneficial to the society. Then let's talk about the possible solutions to existing problems or improvement to unsatisfactory conditions. So here, it talks about your solutions to the problems that you encountered on your research. The next is who are to be benefited and how are they going to be benefited. So here you must mention the individuals, groups, or communities who will be benefited from your research and how will they going to be benefited. Next is possible contribution to the fund of knowledge. And lastly, possible implications. It should be discussed here that the implications include the possible causes of the problems discovered, the possible effects of the problems, and the remedial measures to solve the problems. So here is, you need to conclude the possible results and explains how the findings may be important for the research. So next speaker, please.
Next is scope and limitation of the study. So a brief description of the scope of the study is that it refers to the extent of the relative topics na covered ng buong research study. Scope is to explore the research question and the parameters in which it will operate in relation to the population and time frame. While limitation, on the other hand, are the factors and variables not to be included in the investigation. This can include problems and shortcomings in the study that can be improved or refined. Next slide. Definition of terms. So from the phrase itself, the definition of terms refers to a list of different vocabulary and concepts discussed in the study to give the reader a clear understanding. Next reporter.
Quick review. One of the critical parts in thesis writing is a proper way of writing a title. The title should be clear and distinctively stated. Second, the introduction discusses 4 relevant ideas. Sila yung topic or subject matter, importance of the topic, reasons for choosing the topic, and the purpose of the study. Third, the background of the study is an overview of factors which have led to the problem comprise the problem and historical significance relative to the problem. A review of existing literature on area of your research. Ito siya yung sa background of study. Ito yung existing ng research tungkol sa area nyo. And the fourth one is theoretical framework. Theoretical framework is the foundation of the research study. It is an organized body that explains what has been done and what has been said on the topic or problem being investigated. Theoretical framework can hold or support a theory of a research study. So, napakahalaga ni theoretical framework. Next slide po. Fifth, the conceptual framework become the central theme, the focus, the main thrust of the study. It serves as a guide in conducting investigation. Ito yung mga main point sa research na mahalaga na kailangan pagtuunan talaga ng pansin, yung conceptual framework. Next reporter.
And the previous slide pa. So number 6, statement of the problem. So statement of the problem is the general statement of the whole problem followed by specific questions or subproblems into which the general problem is broken up. So dito mo nakalagay yung mga problems na which this study or this research is looking to solve. Number 7, hypothesis is a tentative answer to a research question. It can be derived from the observation before the research is conducted or derived from the theory. So hypothesis is another way of saying, it's another word for an educated guess. It's like thinking of an answer before the outcome based on the evidence na meron na. So that's what an hypothesis is. So number 8 would be assumptions. Assumptions, medyo malapit siya sa hypothesis. It's a belief that forms one of the basis of research. So next slide. So significance of the study discusses the implications during the possible causes of the problems discovered, the possible effects, and the remedial measures to solve the problems. So basically, significance of the study, why conduct this study, what good can this possibly bring? So yun ang ibig sabihin ng significance of the study. Scope and limitation of the study discusses the subject matter, locale of the study, period of the study, population, and the weakness of the study beyond the control of the researcher. So scope, hanggang saan, limitation, hanggang saan hindi, like when, where, the locale, like ano yung weakness, ano yung population, how long is this study done, para mga ganon. So yun ang scope and limitation. So lastly, definition of terms. Ito ay listahan ng terms na gagamitin sa research na to. Kasi of course, when it comes to certain studies, they will use terms na hindi natin naintindihan. Us, na hindi kasali sa researchers. Hindi tayo yung kasali sa research, so we don't know these terms kasi hindi naman sila layman. So kaya meron definition of terms para doon na natin makikita like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this term mean? Kung ano nagagawa niya, ano kinalaman niya. So nandun sa definition of terms yung mga sagot sa terms na yun. Yung definition, yeah. So that's all.
That concludes our presentation.